we take a closer look at the Alex Pretti shooting and why one writer says inconvenient facts about the case are being ignored to fit a political narrative. Tonight's commentary focuses on a story that has become a political lightning rod and illustrates a broader problem and how the left frames violent confrontations involving federal agents. The article is entitled About Pretti's Gun, an Inconvenient Truth for the Left, and it exposes how narratives are shaped not by facts, but by ideology, and how inconvenient details are getting buried when they contradict the preferred storyline. The context is the Alex Pretti shooting in Minneapolis that involved Border Patrol agents and the political storm that erupted around it. From the outset, many on the left, they rushed to portray Pretti as an unarmed, innocent victim shot by an oppressive federal force. Headlines and social media posts, they pushed that narrative even before all the facts were in. But here are the facts. He did have a gun. It appears from the video that one of the officers reached over to his waistband to disarm him, and that in the struggle, the other agents maybe did not see that he was disarmed. And then the gun, now in the hand of the agent, appears to misfire. Now remember, before this, the agents heard gun, gun. I've heard that in the video as I've watched it several times. They hear gun, gun, then they hear a shot, and they've got milliseconds to respond. So they perceived, apparently, an imminent threat. The whole thing is sad. But this is the kind of thing that happens when we have people go out with guns, even though they have the Second Amendment right to do it, and confront federal police or any police. This case, folks, it really is a microcosm of a larger issue. When inconvenient facts are inconvenient solely because they contradict political narratives, well, the debate stops being about truth and it becomes more about agendas. From a worldview perspective, we need to ask ourselves a simple question. Do we want a society that honors truth and justice and the rule of law, or do we want a society that reshapes facts to fit political preferences? When gun presence is denied or ignored because the narrative demands it, well, the truth about what happened matters less than the politics behind it. And that's a dangerous precedent. The shooting of Alex Pretti, it's tragic. Any loss of life should be approached with seriousness and a desire to learn. But tragedy should not be used as a political lever to rewrite facts or to undermine, well, constitutional authority, particularly when those facts point in a direction that someone doesn't like, so they rewrite them. Ultimately, the piece that I read today at the American Thinker, it's a piece that reminds us that inconvenient truths are still truths. And a society that ignores inconvenient realities in favor of political expediency, well, that's a society that's losing touch with objective justice. And that is why this story resonates far beyond Minneapolis, because it speaks to how we choose to interpret events, how we choose to define lawful behavior, even exercise our constitutional rights. We need to have discernment in our actions, but also discernment in our interpretation of actions. We need to uphold truth, even when it challenges a political narrative we may not agree with. We continue tonight with an update on immigration enforcement, underscores dramatic shifts in U.S. border security and what officials and analysts are calling historic results under President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown. This story is based on reporting from the Association of Mature American Citizens. And it's on Trump's border policy, which the organization says has produced unprecedented outcomes in terms of illegal border crossings, deportations, and public safety. According to the AMAC article, one of the clearest measures of Trump's border success has been the dramatic drop in illegal crossings at the U.S. southern border. The piece points to U.S. Customs and Border Protection data that shows that in recent months, illegal crossings have fallen to levels that have not been seen since 1970, or more than 90% reduction compared with peak numbers under the previous administration. CBP, they reported that for 7 straight months, no illegal aliens were released into the United States following initial apprehension, what President Trump and his aides have described as evidence that the border is being effectively secured rather than functioning as a gateway to interior releases. Officials noted that month over month, agents have recorded historically low numbers of encounters, with November of 2025 reflecting some of the lowest totals on record. The crackdown, which includes reinstating policies like Remain in Mexico, ending the so-called catch and release policy, tightening asylum processing, and then deploying enhanced enforcement resources, well, it has all been accompanied by significant deportation activity and a reported increase in voluntary departures. AMAC reports that nearly 3 million illegal aliens have left the United States, including both deportations and self-deportations under the current policies. Reporters also linked the improved border conditions with declines in overdose deaths and cartel activity. The AMAC article points out that by designating major cartels as foreign terrorist organizations and by tightening enforcement against smuggling networks, well, drug supply lines, particularly those carrying lethal synthetic opioids like fentanyl, they have been disrupted. And when it comes to public opinion, surveys that are cited in the AMAC article, it suggests that the crackdown is indeed broadly supported by Americans across the political spectrum, with majorities indeed favoring deportations of illegal immigrants who commit crimes. And of course, they back strong enforcement of existing laws. The piece, it argues that corporate media has downplayed this public support in favor of narratives that are critical of enforcement measures. Proponents of the policy, they credit President Trump's decisive executive actions and renewed emphasis on border security for bringing about what they describe as a reversal of the crisis conditions that were seen earlier in the decade. Among the measures highlighted are stronger vetting standards, dismantling of digital or procedural backdoors into immigration systems, and increased interagency cooperation, all aimed at enforcing the law and deterring illegal crossings. All of this brings us to some studies that are now showing we have a drop in crime and murders. It's not been seen in almost 100 years.